The views expressed on this broadcast of Step by Step Towards Emotional Sobriety with Dr. Alan Berger do not necessarily reflect those of Take 12 Radio, KHLT Recovery Broadcasting, or our affiliates. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. And now, here's your host, Dr. Alan Berger, and the Monty Man.
Well, greetings, recovery family. How the heck are you? Welcome to another episode of Step by Step Towards Emotional Sobriety with our friend, Dr. Alan Berger. And I just want to welcome all you YouTube visitors. We've got a brand new camera, and hopefully you can see what's going on a little bit better than before. Dr. Berger, welcome once again. What is going on, my friend?
Well, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Are you going to be my Valentine's money?
Yeah, sure. You might have to check with my wife about that, but
I might be in trouble.
You might be.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. So it's Valentine's Day, and, we just want to send out a big hug and kiss to all those people listening to us and tell you that, look, we love you, and we love you being a part of our family here on Take 12 Radio and Step by Step Towards Emotional Sobriety.
So let me ask you a question, Dr. Berger. When does a person realize that they have obtained emotional sobriety?
Well, that's a great question, Monty, and we've been building towards that. But I'll tell you one way, is that when you are feeling like you're staying in balance more often than not. And so it's that as you're moving through your life, that situations or people are not knocking you off balance.
Right.
But that's the key here, is that the more emotional sobriety I have, the more resilience I have in terms of being able to absorb difficult situations, disappointing situations,
right,
without knocking me off balance.
I had a run-in with some people years ago that really hurt me deeply, and my sponsor told me, and years had gone by, and every time I drove by this particular building of this organization, I would just get chills, And I said, when am I going to get over that resentment? He said, I'll tell you, you'll know when you're over that when you go by that building and you don't take a double take and look at it so hard.
Wow. That's right.
And you know what? It happened. One day it just happened. And now the director of that particular organization and I are good friends. Amazing stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But that is so right on, because what we're looking at there is that you were able to find a way to maintain your balance, or I should say recover your balance, right?
Sure. Yeah,
because
you bet.
you obviously knocked off balance. The situation was quite upsetting to you. But as you work through it, and see, that's one of the gifts of recovery, isn't it? That we start to learn how to deal with life on life's terms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another hallmark of this emotional sobriety, is that we quit trying to control people, places, and things. Or another way to say it is we quit trying to regulate other people,
right,
so that we feel good. Instead, what we try to do is work on how to keep our own balance, to maintain our own emotional well-being, without having to demand that situations go according to our specifications, to our wishes, for us to be okay.
Yeah, amen. Right on. So what are we talking about this week?
Well, look, this is where we're building in some skills, right? Some tips on how to establish this emotional sobriety in your life. And what we're doing tonight is we're going to be talking about owning your own projections as an act of integrity. This becomes a very important skill to develop if you're going to be able to have emotional sobriety.
Okay, let's say that owning your own projections
as an act of your integrity.
As an act of your integrity.
So everybody's probably wondering, what is Dr. Berger talking about? First of all, what is a projection?
Yeah.
So let's discuss that for a while
Okay.
and unpack this concept. So years ago, Sigmund Freud and his daughter Anna Freud talked about the psychological defense mechanisms that people use to deal with certain things that are unpleasant. And one of the defense mechanisms that they discovered, amongst a lot of other ones, was this defense mechanism called projection. So what projection is when I take a part of myself that's undesirable, that I'm ashamed of, that I don't like, that I've disowned, and I attribute it to you. So what we do is we end up setting our boundaries with another person way too much in our favor. So let's give you an example of how that works. Let's say, well, here, I'll give you a great one. I worked with this young man who was very suspicious of other people's motives. And he was always imagining that people were out to take advantage of him and to screw him over. Now, and that permeated every relationship he had. His relationship with his wife, his relationship with his uncle, his relationship with people in the program, his relationship with his therapist. It permeated every relationship. There was always this suspiciousness that was just lurking in the background, and sometimes it was more prominent than others. Now, let's take a look at who he was. Well, what he was doing in his life, he was a heroin addict, and his uncle, who kind of stepped in and became a very important person in his life, really loved him, cared about him, supported him a lot. And his uncle brought him into his business. And it was a very successful business. The uncle was making lots of money. And he trusted this young man blindly, which was a mistake for many reasons.
Sure.
But what this young man was doing was taking checks out of his uncle's business account and cashing them for about anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a month.
Wow.
And the uncle was making so much money, he wasn't even paying attention to these kinds of things.
Really?
Now, what this young man was doing is going out and buying OxyContin with the money.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And, you know, he had a very expensive habit, right? You know, several $1,000s a week, you know, sometimes it's close to $4,000 a week. So he had to have access to a lot of money to continue to buy his drugs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when he was thinking about how everybody else was going to screw him over and take advantage of him, what he was doing was projecting onto the world this side of him that he had never taken responsibility for.
Mm.
He had never owned how he was ripping off his uncle and how he was taking advantage of his uncle and how he used everybody to his end and didn't care about what he was doing about them. And that's how he thought everybody else was treating him.
Right. So that's where we get that those statements that we hear in meetings sometimes and with our sponsor and so forth, that what I see in somebody else is something that's actually in me.
You got it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's something you don't like.
Yeah.
So if I see another person in a meeting and I go, I can't stand that Sam, he's so phony, right?
Right.
I can't stand. He's not saying anything honest. He's not being honest with us in the meeting. What's going on there is that you are seeing Sam's dishonesty, and it, at some level, reminding you of your own dishonesty that you haven't owned.
And that makes us very uncomfortable.
Makes you very uncomfortable
yeah.
until you own it.
Right.
Because, see, if you don't own it, then you're going to have to keep making Sam wrong. And this is the source of a lot of gossip in our program, Monty.
Mm.
Unfortunately, when people are talking bad about somebody else and what's going on with somebody else, they're really talking about themselves and a part of themselves they haven't come into, that they haven't resolved in some way, that they have not found a way to make peace with. So whenever you see somebody gossiping and talking down somebody else, what they're saying about that other person is really reflecting something about themselves that they have not resolved, that they haven't come to grips with.
Why don't we look at other people's character qualities and do the same thing?
Well, I think to some degree we do.
Yeah.
I think that, if you see something great in another person, it's probably also something that's great in you and that it's resonating.
Mm-hmm.
Those things typically, and why, I guess those can cause problems too, but it's usually the negative things that are more the issue, right?
Right,
If
sure.
you attribute to somebody, they're just going to always be understanding all the time as though you are. You know what I mean? I guess that can be a setup too, but the projection is really around something that you disown and that you dislike about yourself and you don't want to see. So that's why we call it a projection. The other thing might be idealizing somebody, which could be another form of a defense. I'm not saying it's also not something that can be, harmful or destructive.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about is when we take something in ourselves that we don't like, and instead of looking at that and dealing with it, we project it out to the world.
So do you think that we do that in a misguided misunderstanding of what comforting ourselves really is? Do we think we
Well,
do?
I think, partly, but it's a much more complicated process than that.
Yeah.
You see, what we disown in ourselves, Monty, comes down with the idea we have about who we think we're supposed to be.
Right.
You see, if I have if I have this idea of who I am supposed to be, then if I don't live up to that, then I'm going to experience a part of myself, and I'm going to dislike that part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to experience that part of myself as what we call the despised self, and I'm going to become ashamed of it. So what I'm going to try to do is to push that aside, not let anybody see that, because I don't like that part of myself.
Right.
Now, even though I push it aside like that, it doesn't go away. It's just lurking in the shadows, right? I push it into the shadows.
Right, sure.
So it's sitting over there in the shadows just waiting, right, for an opportunity to rear its ugly head. Now, the farther I push it away, the more likely I am to project it. There's definitely a relationship.
That makes sense.
The degree to which you disown that part of yourself is the degree to which you're going to have to project it.
And it's going to be harder for you to own it, too, because you shoved it back so far.
So far away.
Yeah.
So far away.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is after we take our break here in a few minutes, after we come back, we're going to give our listeners an exercise to try to help them start to own some of these projections. But let me show you how this plays out
Okay.
in terms of emotional sobriety before we do that. We take a break. So if I don't like something strongly in you, right? And remember what Bill said in the 12 and 12. The
Right.
spiritual axiom that every time I'm upset, there's something wrong with me. So if I see something in you I just can't stand, right,
Yeah.
that I hate, then what that's saying is that's something in me that I haven't come to grips with, that I haven't faced and that I haven't accepted, nor have I taken responsibility for. So that's the thing. So that's the first thing, right?
Right. And let me, Dr. Berger, let me interject here. I want the listeners to understand that we're not talking about when you see it, the ad on TV of the homeless animals or orphanages or something like that you're stirred inside your heart for those situations. That's not what we're talking about. I mean, that's empathy.
No.
We're talking about when this really disturbs us to the point that it's driving us, right? Yeah.
Well, I had a great example tonight of I was talking to someone. She's had this falling out with her stepfather. She feels terribly misunderstood by her stepfather, that he only sees a certain part of her, the negative parts of her, and that he doesn't see the other parts of her that are grateful, that are honest. All he sees is someone who's a user, who's dishonest, and she's very, very upset with him. And she didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore because it's, she just can't stand that
Right.
he's so negative about her. Well, as we were talking tonight, guess what was revealed to her? She does that to herself all the time.
Yeah.
All she does is look at her negative. She doesn't see the positive parts in her. When I start pointing them out, she starts to cry because she doesn't see herself in that light. So the thing she was upset with her stepfather doing was the same thing that she was doing.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
herself that way, but she wasn't owning that. See what I mean?
Yeah.
She could react to it when he did it to her. She didn't like it. She couldn't stand him. And she thinks less of him because he behaves that way.
Wow.
So that's what a great example of it. Why don't we take a break and then we
Okay.
come back? We can talk a little bit about what our listeners can do to start facing stuff.
All right, folks, don't go away. More with Dr. Alan Berger, owning your projections as an act of your integrity when we return.
Men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia exists to help people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. To speak with an addiction specialist, call 1-855-652-4325. That's 1-855-652-4325. Or visit our website at www.therapia.net. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, restoring lives one step at a time.
You and I know all too well how talented folks in recovery are. KHLT Broadcasting, the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show, and the Recovery Broadcasting Network are handing you the opportunity to share some of that talent. If you've ever written your own songs and have always wanted to share them publicly, here's the chance to share your talent with thousands of people all over the world through Internet radio. For the next several months, the Monty Man will be reviewing songs written and performed by people in recovery. Whether you're an accomplished musician or a novice, he wants to hear from you. All forms of music will be considered. Adhering to federal copyright laws and possible contractual agreements, some restrictions may apply.
All right, and listen, if you are a musician or singer-songwriter, please send your CDs to KHLT, P.O. Box 93, Albany, Oregon, 97321. You can also go on our web site at take12radio.com and click on Submit Your Music, that link, the green letters, Submit Your Music. It'll tell you the address and all the stuff that goes with that. There are some restrictions depending on if you're an independent songwriter, but even if you are somebody that's on a major label, there's ways to work around that too. So if you've got something you want to share that is positive, it can be sad, it can be funny. The only thing we ask is no songs with hard profanity and no hate and that kind of thing. We don't want to do that. We're all about solution and recovery here, but we want to hear from you. We've been putting together some brand new music sets, and we're real excited about that. Also, don't forget the cartoon caption contest. Go to Recovery Cartoons at take12radio.com, enter the contest, and you could win a two prizes actually, courtesy of recovery comedian Mark Lundholm. One is a DVD. It's 90 minutes. It's a live presentation by Mark, and it is called Addiction, a Comedy of Substance. And then we also have a bonus CD for you from Mark Lundholm too. Have you seen Mark Lundholm in action, Dr. Berger?
Oh, yes, I have. Mark is fantastic.
That guy's crazy, man. And we're just so lucky to have him on our board and having him do this for us. Okay. So owning your projections as an act of your integrity continues here at Take12Radio.com. So what are we doing again?
Well, we've just discussed what a projection is. It's when I take a part of myself that I don't like
Right.
and that I've disowned, that I don't want to take responsibility for, and that I attribute that behavior to you.
Yeah.
And it's saying that you have it, you're bad, and I'm good, I don't have it. So it's that game that we play with ourselves and with other people. And we can sense that we're having an experience of that projection when we really don't like another person's behavior. That more often than not means that we're seeing something in them that we don't like in ourselves. And that's the projection.
Okay.
So how do we start to own this stuff? Well, I'll give you a few tips in general, and then I'm going to ask you to do an exercise.
Okay.
So here's a few tips. If I feel you're misunderstanding me, it probably means that I'm misunderstanding you, and I'm projecting my misunderstanding of you onto you. If I feel that you're being abusive to me, verbally abusive, it's more likely than not I'm abusing you, and I'm not looking at it how I'm abusing you. If I feel like there's no room for me in the relationship, that it's just about what you want, then it's more likely than not that I'm not making any room for you.
You're cutting out a little bit, Dr. Berger.
Say that again?
I said you were cutting out just a little bit there.
Okay. Let me just say that again. That if I feel like there's no room for me in the relationship, that you're not making any room for me, that I feel that probably what's going on is I'm not making any room for you, but I'm projecting that onto you.
Yeah, you bet.
So, when we say treat other people like you'd like to be treated, right?
Sure.
We say all the time, right? Isn't that the golden rule?
Yeah.
What we're usually doing is we're treating other people like they are the worst part of us. and we're treating them like we think we'd be treated if we expose that part of ourselves.
Yeah. Boy, isn't that the truth.
I mean, so it gets a little bit twisted in this whole drama, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens in this whole thing. It gets very, very twisted. So let me give you our listeners the exercise.
Okay.
I know they're all chomping at the bit.
All right.
Paper and pencil is out, right? They're sitting there. They can't wait to do this. Yeah, right. So here's the exercise. I want you to take a piece of paper, and I want you to write on that piece of paper on the top. This is going to be a list of all the people in your life that you don't like, where their behavior drives you nuts, where they upset you, that you resent them, you can't stand how they behave and how they treat other people. And so I want you to write down what they do. What is the behavior that you can't stand? So this other person I was talking about tonight, she would write down, I can't stand how my stepfather just looks at me, just looks at the negative in me, and he doesn't see anything positive. He misses all those other parts of me that make me a complete person. And I'm much more than just the parts of me that are ungrateful at times, that are selfish at times. I'm a lot more than that, right?
Sure.
So she writes that down. And I want you as the listeners to write down everything. The way that Sam speaks in meetings, he's such a phony. He talks all the time about how great things are. And he never shows anybody where he's having difficulty. Or whoever, or Mary's a drama queen, and it's about Mary, and she just wants attention all the time. Whoever upsets you in a meeting or in your life, write down what they do, their name, and what they do that upsets you.
So that would include people that maybe you're not upset with them right this minute, but as soon as you walk in the meeting, your feathers are ruffled.
Okay, that person.
Yeah.
Or people that you are upset with every time, right? Maybe not something that you think about all the time, but
right.
anybody that you've been upset with in that way. All right? So you're going to make this list. This is a very important list. Because what you're going to do next, and I forgot to say this, on that piece of paper, draw a line down the middle.
Oh,
This
okay.
is going to be in the left column, right?
Okay.
These are people I can't stand. Horrible people, despicable people. You know, that's going to be in this column. And then column 2 is going to be called Despicable Me.
Ah, just like the movie.
Yeah, just like the movie, right?
Yeah.
But now you write in this column, you take what you don't like about them and you see if you can own it. I treat myself in this, I don't see in myself, so the first example I gave, I don't see myself in a hole. I just see the negative things about myself. So see if that, and
Wow.
write that down and then say it out loud and check in with yourself. And this is the important thing. Check in with yourself to see if it's true.
You know, the old timers used to say, "Now you're meddling," because I wrote down 3 people. I'm sure if I thought about it, you know, as we were doing this, and then I wrote down what they did or what they do, and then when you said, you know, the Despicable Me part, oh Lord have mercy, guilty as charged, my brother.
Yeah, right. Well, it happened to me the other day. I'll just share what happened in the session. So, you know, this client shows up at 1 o'clock.
Right.
Oh, she's really scheduled at 2. I tell her, you know, you're going to have to come back. And so I go back to my office, check the schedule to make sure that that's when she was. So she said, you know, come on back at 2. Well, the session I was in ended at 2. We went a few minutes over. I started her session at about 5 after 2. So she starts the session by saying, you know, I got to tell you this story about how this other doctor was late and I confronted him and he didn't like it. And I got to tell you what was going through my mind is, you know, what do you do? You know,
Yeah.
This is my time. Why aren't you, you know, getting me in on time and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
And my first reaction was, you got to be kidding me. Are you serious? You're talking to me about this, right? I'm a great therapist. I mean, I'm so compassionate.
Oh yes, you are.
Just wonderful. So, you know, I go, so what are you asking for me? Well, she can't be straight about it because what she's really saying to me is, how dare you be late with me? I'm an important person. That's what she's saying, right?
Sure.
And I want you to know how important I am. And so, you know, I start to try to get her to say that stuff to me. But at the same time, you know, I'm aware that I really don't like what she's doing. And so I start to talk to her. So she can't say what it is, and I go into, you know, this whole thing about, well, you know, let me tell you how I'm reacting. I don't like what you're saying to me. She goes, what? I said, I don't like what you're saying to me. It pisses me off.
You're supposed to co-sign her baloney. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, I know it. So
Right.
She goes, excuse me, Dr. Berger? I mean, I've never had a professional talk to me this way. I go, I'm not interested in being the kind of professional you think I should be either.
Whoa.
So now, I can get pretty nasty. I got a nasty side to me. So now I start to really dig in with her, and I'm even more upset with her. And my voice, I'm not yelling yet. Oh, I can yell. I can really yell. And I'm not yelling it, but I'm raising my voice, you know, because I'm irritated with what's going on. And she goes, you know, I've been traumatized by men yelling at me before, and I'm feeling, you know, traumatized. I'm starting to get upset that the way you're raising your voice with me. And I said, then leave.
No.
She goes, what? I said, leave, because I need to get upset right now. I'm irritated. I'm bothered by what you said. I need to have my reaction, and if you can't tolerate it, then you need to walk out and come back in a few minutes after I've repaired myself. But you're not going to control me and stop me from doing what I need to do, you know, with that shenanigans. So she has no idea what to say to that, right?
Oh, wow.
But then she says, well, why? I said, listen, I know this is hard for you. But and I think you need to have the right to walk out if you don't want to stay here. But I think you also need to be able to give yourself the right to stay. And to see if you can hang in with me or not. Like, if you can go out if you need to. But see if you can hang in, and for you not to get alienated from me, and I'll try not to be alienated from you as we're having this trouble. And let's see if we can find a way to talk ourselves through it.
Right.
Well, she goes, oh my God. She goes, nobody's ever said that to me before. Never been able to do that. So we start talking, and then we get to the point where I'm able to finally own my projection. I said, I think I know what's going on here. I said, what was behind this that you didn't want to say to me is, how dare you not get me in on time, because I'm an important person, and I want you to know how important I am. And when you do this, it makes me feel like I'm unimportant, and I don't like that. It pisses me off, Dr. Berger. And what I'm feeling is, how dare you question me? I'm an important therapist.
That's right. I'm in charge.
I can. And as soon as we got to that, we were finished. We were okay with each other. And she says, I've never had anybody that I could sit down and talk through a difficult situation like this.
Yeah. Well, and she's still your client, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's.
I'm not even going to raise her fee.
And maybe she should charge you.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. Well, look, if you're a good therapist, the therapy changes you as much as it changes the client. That's funny.
Yeah, I get
because it's the real experience, It's me being with someone and trying to be authentic on my side, and I'm not, perfect at it. Neither are they. And so
Right.
It's kind of two blind fools kind of trying to find their way. But I have so much faith that if we stay connected and keep struggling, that we're going to find a good place. And I've seen that many times. It's scary as hell to do because you get into these other places. But I know that if people can hang in and continue to try to understand and be personal and vulnerable with each other, they're going to get to that place.
Good. So let's review here. This little form that I just filled out here.
Yeah, can you give us an example of one person on your phone?
Yeah, you bet. On the left-hand side, people I can't stand, and I put this person's name down, and what they do.
What can't you stand about them?
What they do is when they give, they don't give with an open hand. They give with a closed fist. In other words, they give. I'm going to help you. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to expect something back. And they don't suggest that when they're giving in the mode of giving, but later on they expect you to man up and be there for them at their every whim. And so that's kind of an irritant to me because it has felt like, well, gee, I didn't ask you to do this for my kid. I didn't ask you to do this for my wife. And now you're demanding all these things. So then when I went over to Despicable Me, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count how many times I've been guilty of that myself.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, that's not a part of you that I know you as a very generous man, and that would be a part of you that you don't feel good about.
Sure. And I've worked on that over the years, and I've got a lot better with it. But I can look at this piece of paper and I can own it and say, yeah, I get it.
And listen, and here's the thing this is the thing that always amazed me about this stuff, Monty. If there may be times when your giving is conditional.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, you don't always have to be Saint Money.
Right.
And there could be times, but here's the real thing, is that when we accept and own that and make that a possibility, then we can say that to someone and they can decide if they want to get involved with us in that way or not.
Right.
So there is nothing wrong with putting a string on or a condition on something that you feel that you want to put a condition on, as long as you are straight and upfront about it.
Yeah, because if you let's say money, for instance, if you give money to somebody and you come in across like it's a gift, and you're not honest and direct with them that this is a loan, do you understand that?
Yep.
Then you really can't come back later and say this was a loan, because you didn't make that clear. That's not even fair.
Got it, man. You're right on, brother.
Yeah.
Right on. See, and what happens is people don't make that clear, and then they get upset with the other person. How come you're not, a nicer person where you want to pay me back? And we get into all these things, what I call these manipulations, instead of learning how to be straight about these things.
Sure.
And a lot of the things that we're ashamed of owning are, how to say it? It's we're doing a number on ourselves because they're not things to be ashamed of. What happens is because we're ashamed of the way they come out makes them very toxic and ugly behaviors.
Right.
But when you own them more up front for what they are, like when I own to her, how dare you, and I can say, own my arrogance up front and my narcissism up front, she could own hers up front, then we could laugh at it and say, oh my God, look at how silly we are.
Sure. Yeah.
And if I'm playing a game and hiding it, then I'm going to be resentful. I'm going to, all of a sudden not have time to see her because I won't want her to come in again.
Yeah.
It's all that indirect, passive-aggressive, behavior. That's a bunch of BS.
So listeners, check this out. And this is what I'm going to do. Some people are very, people in recovery are very talented. I'm going to go over to my printer, and on my print shop, I'm going to make a little form that's going to have on one side people I can't stand and what they did, on the other side Despicable Me, and I'm going to cut and paste that little Despicable Me character. And sometimes if you do that, it makes do something like, get a little creative with your growing experience. And when you do that, sometimes it's a whole lot more palatable and you can get through it. True?
Right on.
Yeah.
That's right on.
Yeah. Right on. Good stuff. What are we going to talk about next time?
Well, look, I'm very excited to announce that we're going to have a very, very special guest. And so, we've been going through 12 smart things, and today we've taken on the chapter about, owning your projections as an act of your integrity. We're going to put that on hold for 1 week.
Okay.
Because 2 weeks from tonight, Zoe Williams, the host of Zo What, a radio host that has been on the Foxhole, the Sirius FM Foxhole, Jamie Foxx's network that was on Sirius Radio. He's going to be joining us. And Zoe Williams is a very, very special man. He's a great, great spokesperson and in the African American community, and he's going to join us talking about emotional sobriety and also share his ideas, some of his perspectives on it, and also talk about what that means in terms of the African American community. So I'm very excited. We're going to have a very special guest. Please tell your friends to tune in. It's going to be there's never a show with Zoe that isn't a lot of fun.
Well, great. Zoe Williams, when we come back here, not next week, but the week following, folks, you don't want to miss that here at Step by Step Towards Emotional Sobriety with Dr. Alan Berger. By the way, you can visit Dr. Berger's website at abphd.com. You can also email him at abphd@msn.com. Follow the links here at take12radio.com. And remember, you can rewind this show now that we're on every social networking site, particularly YouTube. You can watch over and over again and listen to this stuff. If you don't remember something that Dr. Berger said, just rewind it. I love technology. Let technology work for us.
Work for you.
Yeah, you bet.
So let me make a few announcements about
Yes.
things that are coming up this year. It's a very exciting year for me. I am in April, the first weekend in April, going to be at the Dan Anderson Renewal Center at Hazleton. I'll be doing a retreat on emotional sobriety. It starts that Friday and ends on Sunday. And if you go on the Hazleton website, look underneath the Dan Anderson Renewal Center, and look up emotional sobriety, you're going to see the retreat that I'm going to be doing. I guarantee you, those people that have attended my retreats have found it just phenomenal. In fact, if you go on Amazon and you look up some of the reviews or one of the specific reviews on 12 Smart Things, there's somebody that says Dr. Berger's work is great, but there's nothing like spending some time with him and getting to see him work. So this is an opportunity. If some of you want to get deeper and deeper into the subject, please come and join me in Hazleton at the Dan Anderson Renewal Center. At the end of April, I will be doing another retreat with Herb Kagan in Sedona, Arizona, and we're going to be doing it on emotional sobriety. So that's another opportunity, and if you send me an email at abphd@msn.com, I can send you a flyer about that retreat in Sedona. So those are two things that are going to be coming up here in the next month that I'm very, very excited about and hope to be able to share. Now, I will also be speaking at It Happens to Boys. There's two conferences. One of them is going to be at the end of this month on February 28th, and there's also going to be one, and that's in Pasadena, and one's going to be out in Palm Desert, I believe in March. So I'm going to be speaking on self-hate and what self-hate or how self-hate plays a role or in male development and what it does to men and how it really, really messes up our lives. So
Sure.
It's going to be a phenomenal talk, and I'm speaking with some other great speakers. John Lee, who wrote Flying Boy, Jerry Moe from the Betty Ford Center, Dr. Harry Haratunian, the author of Being Sober. So there's a lot of great speakers at these
Wonderful.
conferences. So yeah, if they just go on It Happens to Boys, you'll be able to go ahead and find more information about those conferences.
Great. Awesome. And see, folks are sitting there right now. They're like, what did he say? What did he say? Just rewind. Just take that little thing and just
That's good.
go backwards and listen to it again. All right. Dr. Berger, thank you so much.
All right, Monty, another great show. God bless you. You keep up the work, my friend.
All right, folks.
And
Don't.
happy Valentine's
and
Day.
happy-
Give me a big kiss. Don't tell your wife.
Mwah.
Mwah.
Happy Valentine's Day to everybody, and congratulations for all of you out there for tuning in to Take12Radio.com and Step by Step Towards Emotional Sobriety with Dr. Alan Berger. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with Dr. Berger, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.